Thanks, everyone. So I'm standing between this and ice cream. So I'm going to try to jam a 30-minute talk into 10 minutes, which I think I can do. So let's kick this off quickly. Is that up? And we're also running half an hour late, so I'm sure that the ice cream is sounding even more appealing right now. So while we start, I guess let's talk a little bit about why Uber is delivering food. So we are a transportation company, and now we're delivering food. And as Moody mentioned, delivery is hard. I think Ray's got it right. Don't do delivery. It's super difficult. And so why are we doing it? Well, it's a huge market. And I think you've heard this before or earlier today. It's a massive market. Shelter for the average Canadian consumer is the biggest spend, and then it's food and transportation. And so Uber's now playing squarely in those two markets. But beyond that, anyone can start a food delivery company. It's not super difficult. Why we're doing it specifically is because we've got this massive network of cars on the road, tens of thousands of cars on the road every day in Toronto that could potentially be a delivery partner for whatever we're trying to deliver. And right now, that's food. So that's good in theory, but what does that mean? What are we trying to do exactly? Our mission is to make eating well effortless at any time for anyone. And breaking that down, eating well, that's high quality food that's hot or cold if it's supposed to be cold. You don't want hot ice cream. Nutritious food that is tailored to you. When we talk about effortless, it's super easy. I almost think of ourselves more like Netflix than we do a food delivery app because the restaurants are our content, and so we should be serving up the best content for the individual at the time that they specifically want it. So if you're in the mood for a romantic dinner, we should be giving you those choices. If it's 2 a.m, those are different choices that you'll be looking for. Flawless deliveries. We want deliveries that are really fast, really flawless. Pickup times and drop-off times that are perfect at any time. So speed is obviously crucial. You can schedule orders, order ahead, and accurate ETAs. So knowing exactly when your food is coming to their door, and for anyone. So low cost in more cities. When I first started, we were in just over 15 cities. As a proud Canadian, I love shouting from the rooftops that UberEATS was actually started here in Canada, in Toronto. So we were the first launch city for UberEATS, and so great to see that history with the product through the globe. And since I started, we're now in over 72 cities. How many people have tried UberEATS? All right, so a lot of you have, and so I'm not going to spend too much time with the demo. The demo would have been really quick. You click a bunch of times, and then food comes. That's really it. And then the middle there is the restaurant app. One of our restaurant partners said it was insultingly simple. The idea is you give them an iPad and they start taking orders. Doesn't get more complicated than that. And then on the driver's side, it's very similar experience to the Uber experience. You know where you're picking up your food. You show up, you pick it up, you drop it off. So let's talk a little bit about the future of food. And a warning, this contains a little bit of fiction. And I'm going to talk about 7 trends here. So no more boring food. Get any bite at any time. Eating is data-driven. Restaurants put delivery first. Farm-to-table scales. Dishes go viral. And the long tail gets longer. So the first one, no more boring food. That's a microwave dinner. If you don't want that, you can go over to KitchenMate and get a real meal, or you can get it delivered on UberEATS. And so we're trying to make food no longer a practical and daily experience, but something that's fun and enjoyable every time you do it. I was doing this at another conference, and someone asked, how much of your demand is planned and how much of it is impulse. And our average delivery time in Toronto is 14 minutes. And so when you can do a delivery in under half an hour from the moment you click the button to the moment it arrives at your house, the lines between impulse and planning start getting blurred, right? So we're trying to make that experience real for every consumer. any bite at any time. So this is a map of Toronto, and these are all the deliveries we've done in the last several months. As you can see, there's not a lot of white space there, and you're seeing deliveries in places that you typically wouldn't see deliveries. You think about takeout as being lazy on a Friday night and not wanting to cook, but now you're seeing ice cream being dropped off on the beach. You're seeing people ordering donuts to arenas. You're seeing meals and catering meals to churches, and you're seeing if you go to Toronto Pearson, there's a lot of dining options. There are drop-offs in the middle of Toronto Pearson. So people are using delivery in a way that's very different than people have been using it before, and we think it's going to be a more and more frequent use product. Eating is data-driven, and so if you think about the average restaurant experience, you walk in, you order some food, you sit down, and if you don't like it, you probably just never come back. And so the restaurateur doesn't get a lot of feedback. We have a review system similar to the Uber app where we get reviews on every dish, on every courier, and it's a thumbs up, thumbs down rating, and then we surface that to the restaurant. So they get all this data that they just never would have seen before. And so we had a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, great Italian restaurant that made this braised short rib risotto, like 98% rated, and all of a sudden we saw the ratings drop, like very suddenly. So we were able to surface that to the restaurant and say, hey, your awesome risotto now sucks. So what's up with that? Turns out, unbeknownst to the owners and the managers, the chef had changed the arborio rice in the risotto. And so obviously, and for cost reasons. So obviously, immediately go back and change the rice back to what it was, and we saw our ratings go right back up. So really cool ways to use data around food that just never was possible before in the physical world. Restaurants put delivery first. If you look at the annual reports of a lot of these QSR companies, the in-store traffic is really flat, and delivery is starting to take off. And recently, the McDonald's CEO press released the importance of delivery. And the reason for that is because delivery is growing at a pace that far exceeds in-store traffic. And this is a McKinsey study, and we're expecting delivery to grow at anywhere between 20 and 25% year over year. Farm to table scales. Waste, we talked about waste. Food waste is a terrible thing. 40% of food consumed in North America goes to waste. And so what we're predicting and what we're anticipating is seeing farm to table scale at a rate that's that it's scalable. In my previous life, I was in venture capital, and we invested in a company that did flour delivery. If you think about the typical flower delivery chain, you grow the flower. The farmer grows the flowers, usually in Colombia or Ecuador. Someone picks it, they give it to an exporter. It gets put on a truck or a plane or a boat. Well, not a boat, but a truck or a plane. It goes to an exporter, importer, and then it goes to an auction house, and the florist goes to the auction house. The florist picks it up, puts it in their store, someone comes and buys it, and then it dies like 2 days later. So we reinvented that and said, okay, why don't we just do deals with the farmer and then send them directly to the consumer? And so, obviously cut out a ton of waste, make the flowers last way longer, because that supply chain takes anywhere between 7 to 9 days. And I think you're seeing this already happening in the food industry, and we just expect this to happen more and more. Number 6, dishes go viral. I did this talk a couple weeks ago, and that was a sushi donut, but that's very last week. So this is the new thing, apparently. This is a spaghetti donut. You dip it, it's a deep fried spaghetti thing that you dip into sauce. It looks delicious. That's Smorgasburg in Brooklyn. The thing about this is you can, with a platform like ours, and when you digitize the food world, you can capitalize on trends like this really quickly. And an example of that is poke is super hot right now. Poke bowls, people love poke bowls. Poke bowls is just a decomposed sushi wrap, right? And so we're able to actually take the searches that people are doing, geolocate them, and say, okay, in this area there's like all these poke bowls that are happening, and so we then can call a bunch of sushi restaurants and say, hey, you should take the rice and then not wrap it and just put the fish on top and then call it a poke bowl. And they crush it, like they really crush it. And so we're able to capitalize on trends like this really quickly, farm it out to our restaurants and say, hey, listen, like this is really hot, you should do this. And who knows, I think in a couple months, probably poke bowls won't be that hot, but they'll be the next thing. And I think you can take advantage of these viral trends that are happening in the food industry. And then finally, the long tail gets longer. Unicorn food. So if you got into the app last Sunday, it was National Unicorn Day. And you were able to buy unicorn-themed cakes, unicorn-themed cupcakes, unicorn-themed toast. What's that? Unicorn-themed donuts. And now Starbucks came out with unicorn-themed Frappuccino or something, which looks awesome and magical. Again, with the reach that you get and with the ability to reach so many more consumers, you can build a sustainable business model on more longer tail items. And in a way that Amazon is doing what they're doing with some kind of niche and long tail items, food delivery and a food delivery platform can become that for a lot of food makers and restaurateurs. We've got, and I'm not sure if anyone saw this contest, but we just rented some kitchen space in the East End of Toronto, and we invited food makers to come and pitch their delivery-only restaurant concepts. And if you think about the restaurant industry, it's from just a pure rational business perspective, it's absolutely insane. You spend like a couple $100,000, you get some space, you renovate it, you build a menu, you hire a bunch of staff, you cook some food, and then you cross your fingers and hope that someone shows up to eat, and then if they don't, your restaurant fails, and 90% of them do. And what we're trying to do is make this a really capital and light model where we can, where a food maker or a chef can come in and cook food without any of the overhead costs, test their concepts, kind of create that MVP in the food industry, and then really create their kind of brand on the platform. And then if they want to expand into brick and mortar, they can do that, or they can stay delivery only and stay a lot leaner. So some of the things that we're doing at UberEATS, the goal of this was to obviously go through some of these trends, but the real goal was to get you to try it. So we've got a promo code somewhere here on this. But welcome to try it if you haven't tried it. Happy to take any questions, and thanks for listening. Where's that thing that I want to throw? You can throw it first.
Have you tried any trend in home cooked food?
You mean kind of the UberX model for food?
Yes.
There's two issues with that. A lot of people have commercial kitchens, and not a lot of people are food handling certified. There potentially is a world where that can happen, but we're not quite there yet. In 2027.
2027, you think it's definitely one of the trends?
Sure. Yes. So food delivery is super fragmented. There's lots of different players, a lot in individual markets. So we're learning. Our competitors have been doing this for a long time, and they're great. And so we're learning a lot from them, and obviously competing hard against those individuals. I think, we've always faced the challenge of scaling really fast. I mean, I'm not gonna shy away from it. There's all the issues in the press that you've read over the last several months is a function of scaling really, really fast, right? Some of it's founded, most of it's not, but that's one of the challenges is how do you scale? We basically increase the org from a couple hundred people to several thousand within a short amount of time. So obviously challenging to do that.
Nice throw.
That was impressive.
Huge fan. We actually ordered poke bowls to the office last week.
Good.
I know you guys announced recently catering and corporate catering.
Yeah, on Monday.
Yeah. How's that gonna work? Like, what I love about Uber Eats, it's so quick. How's that gonna work with your drivers and keeping to the same Uber principles?
So we have pre-packed. Like, so we've partnered with a select few restaurants that can continue to make that really quick. Our drivers, it just increases the prep time. The driver time is the same, right? So the restaurant has the ability to manually adjust the prep time, and so if it's 45 minutes, then it's 45 minutes. But knowing that it's a bigger order, most consumers order a little bit earlier. But it's a specific product, and we've got specific drivers that are traded to do that.
I'm going to build on that question. I'm not sure if this is working or not. Moving into corporate catering, obviously a completely different world, different requirements, different business, everything. I've actually run into this with Uber Eats, so it's a bit of feedback / question. Is there ever a plan to actually not like maybe split slightly away from how Uber Eats delivers all the invoices, all of everything? Because every time I've used it at work, it comes as a regular Uber, like as if you took a trip. On the credit card, a transaction comes in as transportation, which drives the accountants insane, because having to fix that later on in SAP does not happen easily. Yeah. Is there anything that you're doing to actually deal with that different kind of aspect, like web instead of mobile, for example?
Yeah, so we're fixing web. Web is broken. Who uses web anyway? Web is obviously a focus of ours, and we have a product on the ride side called U4B, Uber for Business. Not currently on Eats, but you can speculate.
Yeah, I was wondering, so it seems like every other food delivery company in Toronto is using bike carriers.
Yep.
And I was wondering what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of that approach with using cars with Uber Eats?
So we use bikes as well. We have some supply of bikes. The challenge, so Uber Eats is a three-sided marketplace, right? We've got eaters, we call them eaters. We got restaurants, and then we've got our driver partners. And if there's a ton of demand, we need more driver partners, right? And the unfortunate thing I love Toronto, but the unfortunate thing about living in Toronto is it snows. And when it snows, demand goes up because no one wants to leave their house, and then supply goes down because no one wants to leave their house. And so it's a challenge, and particularly when you only have bikes, that's a challenge. So it's this delicate dance that we play around maintaining the right level of bikes and the right level of cars given the season, and making sure that we have the right people to do the right job.
Okay. All right. Who's next?
Yeah, just wondering how people are, if you can share with us, how users are responding to surge charging on Uber Eats. Because I know it gets like $5, I had $12.
It's called busy area fee.
Okay,
Listen, the point of the busy area fee is to maintain reliability, right? And so when I talk about this dynamic of demand and supply, when people don't want to leave their house, they don't want to leave their house, and so it's matching the supply with demand and making sure the system is super reliable.